Holly Johnson. I'm so happy to be with you this afternoon on Upfront, a show for artists by artists. And we have as a special guest this afternoon, Carl Ratliff, and we just want to say welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So glad to see you. I was lucky enough to see you perform the other night, and I hope in our course of our conversation we can talk about that and also get a clip.
Oh, sure.
And play it, but it was a wonderful experience. Can we just start off, though, with a little bit of background about your own life and how you came to music and when, and something about you and when you first got that spark of interest in music?
Okay, I think my introduction to music began, like probably most people, playing with pots and pans in my grandmother's kitchen. I was trying to mimic parades that I had seen, as a little baby, and I was happy just on the floor with spoons and pots and pans and
oh my
lids.
Goodness, a prodigy. How old were you then?
Very tiny, as I'm told by my grandmother. I can't remember the exact age, but it was probably, a toddler, just creeping around.
Now, did people in your household play music? Did you have musicians around you or not?
Yes, somewhat. My mother played piano. She had to take it as a traditional type thing coming up as her years, school age years. But she put it to rest, not knowing that she would have to pick it up again for church. She became the only available person that had to play, so she had to start back practicing, and she played for our church.
Now, where was that? Was that in Wadesboro or?
Morven, which is near Wadesboro.
Okay.
It's about 8 miles from Wadesboro.
Okay.
And so then, that's a good progression. I began to sing, of course, on the church choir, and just eager to actually start band, because band started in 6th grade at the school that I attended.
What was that school?
Morven Elementary School.
Okay. But you were already playing in church or singing in church?
That's right, singing
Okay.
in the groups at church and so forth.
And what is your church, your home church over there in Morven?
It is Ebenezer Presbyterian Church.
Okay. All right, excellent. So your mother was the minister of music or the pianist?
The pianist
Okay.
or organist.
Okay.
And
And as time went forward then, what happened next in your musical career?
okay, next, finally got the opportunity to join the band in 6th grade.
Okay.
And it was, of course, Morven Elementary, and then which fed into Anson Junior High
Oh.
and Anson County.
Right.
And I played through the bands, 7th through 9th grade. Became quite serious about it.
And you were on the saxophone at this point?
That's right.
Okay.
I was on the saxophone.
Okay.
I will back up just a little bit. I was, I guess, encouraged or inspired to play the saxophone from, I guess, hearing it on the radio first, and then as a little child and asking, say, my uncle, what instrument is that? And he'd say saxophone. And so I knew what I wanted to play pretty early on.
Do you know, just off the top of your head, who you were listening to at that point? Or do you know, did he tell you who you might have been listening to at that point that you were attracted to? Or just the whole sound of the sax?
It was the sound of the sax.
Okay.
I don't think it was any particular. I think it was just a regular commercial radio.
Okay.
And I asked, and it was the sax, and I knew I wanted to play. So very early on, I tried to mimic those sounds. And fortunately, my father had some albums, some jazz albums. And the first album I tried to mimic was Sidney Bechet from New Orleans. Mm-hmm. He was playing, though, the soprano sax, and I had an alto sax. But he played with the vibrato, wide vibrato style, and I tried to play with that style too, as long as I could. And then I began to access a jazz station, I think, from the campus of Fayetteville State University.
So you learned to play by listening first, by ear.
Well, not really. I just incorporated it.
Okay.
In band class, of course, we had
Right,
music.
right. So
And-
during this time, you're progressing through elementary, middle, going to high school, and you're sticking with the band.
Right.
Okay.
I'm
okay.
sticking with the band.
Okay.
Fortunately, I made the all district bands coming up from 8th grade straight through high school. I was a member of the all state band,
Okay.
North Carolina.
And you did some summer camps, you said before. Can you give me a little bit of that experience? What was that like?
Okay. The summer camp, it was kind of, a band director was getting rid of some mail on his desk. He said, "Here, Carl, you might be interested in that." And I took it seriously, took it home. My parents read it and asked me would I like to go, and I did. And I went 3 times consecutive summers.
And my teacher was there, right?
That's right, Mr. Hanna.
Mr. Hanna.
Mr. Bill Hanna was there. He sure was. I tell you, it was a treat because I guess hearing them play live jazz was awesome. He was the first night was they would play for the campers and give a little jazz concert. Mr. Hanna, of course, on keyboards. There was a saxophonist teaching in the camp named Mr. Willie Gillen.
Okay.
And Mr. Gillen was a fabulous player, had played with the Naval Band and recorded, and he was the lead alto for Glenn Miller's orchestra.
I've heard that name before, yeah.
Yeah, so all of that inspired me.
So now then you got to actually play with them on the subsequent nights. You began to play with the teachers. They began to incorporate the youth, or how did that work then?
Where, at the camp?
Yes.
Okay, at the camp, we still continued to play with the other campers in the bands,
Mm-hmm.
but you got like a 30-minute private lesson that week.
Gotcha.
And so I got to play with Mr. Hanna, and then I'd go home and over the school year and try to, remember what some of the things he said, and then I'd come back and play again.
So this became a lifestyle for you. And what happened next after high school? As you went on, you decided this is going to be music, it's going to be my career. So what happened in terms of your decision making and your life after that?
Okay. Of course, I decided to go to Winthrop. One of, I think, college's big recruitment to our camps. And I didn't know that, of course. I was just fell right in line with that. I thought it was the greatest school in the world because it was my first school or opportunity to live away from home and be in a college environment. But had a very good experience there with great teachers.
You decided, though, to major in what at that point in time?
Music education. And that's what brought me to where I am now. And I still wanted to play. And so fortunately, and God has blessed me with the opportunity to teach and to play. And I'm able to bridge the two, take that experience from playing, performing to the classroom and vice versa.
Well, we want to talk more about both of these in just a moment, but we want to just take a quick listen and just hear a number that you've done recently. We'll be right back, okay? Let's just take a quick listen.
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
play. That was really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, what about college? I know that you began your first sort of touring experience there. What happened? Can you fill us in?
Sure. My freshman year, in the fall, we took a tour to Florida, Orlando, Florida, and then worked our way back to South Carolina. We played around at the local schools in Georgia evenly, and so that was a good experience.
So what was the name of that band?
That was the Winthrop Symphonic Band and the Winthrop Jazz Ensemble.
Any mentors there that you want to name that you remember?
Sure. Director of the symphonic band was Dr. Bill Malambry, very great conductor and teacher, and also Dr. David Franklin, who was my first private teacher at the university.
And I've heard that name before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dave Franklin wrote for the Jazz Times, and he's an alto saxophone player,
Gotcha.
a very accomplished player, and knew several of the greats firsthand. He knew the Adderley brothers because he's from Florida, where they're from, maybe the same town. So that was a good thing that he did because he shared those experiences with me.
Now, Carl, after you graduated, you went into your teaching career. Can you talk about your teaching career? Because that spanned all the way up until actually the present, right? So how many years, and then what do you teach?
Okay. I began teaching probably about 18 years ago here at South Charlotte Middle School in the teaching band, and that's grades 6 through 8. I have, I have 2 classes of each, 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, and then I have 2 jazz ensembles. One of them meets after school, the younger one. The 8th grade group meets during the school day.
Okay, so you've been doing this for a while. So your legacy is also in the students and emerging musicians that are coming out in Charlotte.
That's right.
So have you seen some of your students become performers then?
Yes, one student in particular has, he texts me all the time of what he's doing, and actually he was the Van Doren Artist of the Year last year. So he got, Van Doren is a reed maker, a very famous reed maker, French, and so he's been to Paris, France.
Who's the student? Do you mind saying? Oh, if it's going to put the other students in an uncomfortable position, then don't say it. But.
No, I don't mind saying it. The name escapes me.
Oh, don't worry. I'm happy that he succeeded so well,
yes,
and that you have had a role in that, as well as other students, probably other students that they may not even be telling you and text you their success, but they still have had it.
Yes.
Now, can we talk about your professional musicianship a little bit?
Okay.
Bands you've played with. Can you give us some idea of that experience?
Okay. Fortunately, the producer of this show, I've played many gigs with him. I've played with the A Sign of the Times, big band, and organization. I've played with Willie Walker in Conversation Piece. I've played with Player, a group in Rock Hill where I live, still actively playing with all of these groups. And I really like that because they all have a unique style, and the camaraderie is great, and it's a learning experience for me to be able to still play with these musicians.
You're very humble, but most of the musicians that I have met have been very, very humble in terms of their, I'm still learning, like most artists, I'm still on this learning curve, and yet they're really, really accomplished, just like you are.
Well, thanks.
Very accomplished. What about genres? Would you say, what genres have influenced your work the most?
Okay, well, definitely jazz, and also classical, because being a music major, your private instruction usually is formalized around around classical. So I had to learn some of the classical rep for alto saxophone.
Right.
And that, I think, helped with the technique of playing the instrument.
And that makes a lot of sense. Now, you talked, when we first met, a little bit about the fact that you play all three. You play alto, you play soprano sax, right, and you play tenor saxophone. So, and explain what you were saying before about how you make the decisions about, because I said, which one do you like the best? And you were like, this is much more complicated than that. So explain that, will you?
Right. Each of those instruments are from the saxophone family, has a voice. And some songs lend better or is a better fit for each of the, or a particular saxophone. And then some of it depends on my mood. You know, those saxophones have personalities. I think the tenor sax is the battle axe horn. It's the muscle horn. I see the alto is the finesse horn, the sweet horn. The soprano is definitely a sweet sounding melodic horn. I think it has some limitations, but it definitely has a strong voice. Sometimes it depends on who you've been listening to, you know, because that's a big part of playing, is listening to others and listening to the people that came before us.
Absolutely. And I'm really relieved to hear you say that they have personalities, because I feel that way too.
Oh, good.
And I'm just like so relieved that I'm not crazy, that it is true.
Okay,
right? Right? Absolutely.
That's right.
Right. I've never said it, but it sounds that way.
All
So,
right.
very good. Now, can you share just a little bit about maybe your personal feelings about the music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina, in your own career? What are some highlights of your career, or what are some aspirations that you might still have, for example?
Okay. I really like middle school. I do. So I'm having a great time here working with middle school students, you know, and seeing them from 6th through 8th grade. Those grades are different as night and day, you know. So you see them evolve as people, but then you see their talents evolve. You see them make decisions if they want to continue or not.
Right.
And so...
and one thing that I've noticed, and maybe I'm a little bit off on this, or maybe not, but not everybody has the patience to teach and to bring into that next generation. Everybody says, oh, we need the next generation to admire jazz, but not very many people, in terms of musicians, really have that patience to actually bring that generation along. You know what I mean? And
right.
So the fact that you do that is pretty amazing.
Right. And then another vehicle for as far as my teaching is, I also teach in the Jazz Arts Initiative. That's by Lonnie and O.C. Davis.
Okay.
And so I'm working with young people there as well, and then the Community School of Arts camps as well. I work with both the band and jazz.
You're kind of holding up this whole teaching thing.
Well, I enjoy it, but they feed each other.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to take another listen to something you played recently.
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll be right back. Take a listen and enjoy this.
Thanks.
much for that beautiful, beautiful music.
Oh, thank you.
Really appreciate that. Lovely, lovely. Now, over the break, you said the name popped back into your head. Who was that student? Please, we're all wondering.
It is Taylor Marino.
Taylor Marino,
Yes.
okay. Done very well after classes with you. Going forward.
Yes, he's just doing excellent. He will be studying at Juilliard in the fall, and
All right.
as I mentioned, he was the Van Doren Artist of the Year.
But did 8th grade here with you, is that right?
He did 6th, 7th, and 8th here.
Okay,
And,
that's definitely, your mark is definitely on Miss Marino. Very good, wonderful. Let me ask you a question. Is there anyone in the musical world that you would have wanted to play with or want to play with that you haven't yet had a chance?
Well, it would have been cool to play with Grover Washington Jr.
Oh my.
I think his music is timeless and just a wonderful approach to it.
One of the all-time greats.
Yes.
All-time greats. I would understand that. I would
Yes.
understand that. Now, before we leave, I know we're running out of time, but just a quick question about your own aspirations in terms of music. Do you want to write?
Yes. When things settle a little bit, I would definitely want to write. I think I have melodies already in my head, but just have not. I haven't slowed down enough to, put them to paper or formalize them.
Now, when you do, will those be classical tunes, or what will those tunes be like?
I'm thinking jazz, but I wouldn't be surprised if one or two might end up classical, but predominantly jazz.
And when you do it with the jazz, what are you singing? Are you singing smooth jazz, or are you thinking? What are you thinking?
I think a little of both.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we look forward to talking with you again and to hearing you play some more.
Well, thank you.
Around town. Now, if people want to get a hold of you for a gig or to find out where you're playing next, where can they do that at? And can you give us an email address for now? Or they can always check that with our producer or with our websites, of course. But where would you send them right away?
Okay, I would send them 803-493-7886 and also ratjazz@yahoo.com. ratjazz@yahoo.com.
Thank you so much for being with us. It's been
You're very welcome.
a pleasure. Please come back. We're going to have you on again. This
Thanks.
is very nice.
I enjoyed it.
I
Thank you
enjoyed
for
it.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been Upfront.